Shroud of Turin is this amazing relic. At bottom, it's a piece of cloth.
The Shroud of Turin has been a source of fascination and controversy for centuries. Is it, without a doubt, the burial fabric of Jesus Christ, bearing the wonderful imprint of his crucified body, or a problematic medieval forgery? Recent shocking proof has emerged that has turned the shroud controversy on its head, leaving even the most skeptical minds greatly surprised. You're going to want to stick around for this one because it changes everything we thought we knew about the Shroud of Turin. For folks who demand a miracle as evidence of Christ's divinity, the Shroud of Turin may also just be the answer they have been seeking. The image on the cloth, which seems to depict a man who suffered the wounds of crucifixion, has been the subject of severe clinical scrutiny and debate. But now, new discoveries have surfaced that have changed the whole concept we knew about this historic relic. Be keen as we pass deep into the secrets of the Shroud of Turin, unraveling the mysteries that have captivated the sector for hundreds of years. From the brand new clinical evaluation to the theological implications, we'll explore every side of this wonderful artifact. Whether you are a believer or a skeptic, the Shroud of Turin has the strength to shake your faith and undertake your know-how of records. The 1978 medical exam. In 1978, a crew of Yank scientists referred to as the Shroud of Turin Studies Project, STURP, conducted an extensive scientific exam of the Shroud of Turin, the historical fabric believed by many to endure the photo of Jesus Christ. Barry Schwarz, the reliable documenting photographer for the STURP crew, recounts how this undertaking would ultimately change his perspective all the time. Schwarz, an Orthodox Jew raised in an earthly home, became, first of all, an entire skeptic about the shroud, having no emotional ties to it. His position was definitely to visually report the court cases along with his digicam, shooting every detail of the investigation with his lens. The STURP team's sole venture was to determine, using rigorous scientific evaluation, how the well-known photo on the shroud's surface turned into something, whether or not it turned into a painting, a scorch mark, or something else completely. Over 120 continuous hours, the STURP group conducted many tests and analyses at the shroud, amassing many facts. They examined the cloth underneath effective microscopes, studied its chemical composition, or even subjected it to ultraviolet fluorescence. Schwarz, because the documenting photographer was tasked with taking pictures of each aspect of the research, from the problematic examinations of the fabric's fibers to the sensitive management of the relic itself. Because the research advanced, Schwarz observed an increasing number of intrigued using the shroud and the mysteries it held. The team's findings challenged his preconceptions, and he started to look at the shroud in a new light. The data they amassed, which continues to be utilized by scientists worldwide today, found out that the photo on the shroud could not be the paintings of an artist and that the blood stains have been composed of human hemoglobin and serum albumin. Those discoveries were fascinating and confusing, leaving the team with more questions than solutions. Schwarz's function, because the goal, indifferent observer, slowly transformed as he witnessed the group's meticulous paintings and the enigmatic nature of the shroud. What began as an easy venture ultimately modified his entire angle on this historic and debatable relic. He discovered himself captivated by the shroud's secrets and techniques and their profound implications, each scientific and theological. The experience left an indelible mark on Schwarz, who would pass on to become one of the international's main professionals at the Shroud of Turin. The 1978 STURP investigation became a pivotal second inside the records of the Shroud of Turin, losing new mild in this enigmatic artifact and sparking a renewed hobby in its look. Barry Schwartz's private journey as the documenting photographer turned into a testimony to the energy of the shroud to project and remodel even the most skeptical of minds. His story serves as a reminder that, on occasion, the finest discoveries come from the maximum sudden places, and that even the maximum firmly held beliefs can be shaken by past mysteries. In the late 1970s, a huge part of the team that carried out the most sizable scientific exam of the Shroud of Turin consisted of the Shroud of Turin research undertaking, known as STURP. This institution of Yankee scientists and researchers spent years preparing a sequence of tests that might acquire a tremendous quantity of data on the enigmatic relic in an exceedingly short period of time. STURP's #1 goal changed to decide the scientific residences of the faint photo at the Shroud of Turin and find what may have precipitated it. In October 1978, the STURP crew spent 120 non-stop hours examining the shroud, using the present-day medical techniques and system to be had on time. The consequences of their investigation had been the difficulty of ongoing debate and controversy. Lately, a group of Italian scientists from the National Agency for New Technology, Strength and Sustainable Monetary Improvement, INEA, has concluded that the photograph of the shroud could not have been created using human fingers. The double picture, front and back, of a scourged and crucified man is slightly visible on the linen fabric. Yet it possesses many physical and chemical traits that could be impossible to duplicate in a laboratory setting. Consistent with the INEA take a look at, the lack of ability to breed the photo and its specific properties makes it not possible to formulate a reliable speculation on how the affect turned into made. The research worried using mild laser pulses of short-term period and constructed upon a number of the paintings achieved by using STURP, led by physicist John Jackson, who nonetheless runs the Turin Shroud Middle in Colorado Springs. The researchers factor out that during medieval times, no would-be forger would have had the right of entry to the gadget needed to create such a picture using ultraviolet light. This suggests that the enigma of the Shroud of Turin remains a puzzle, with the INEA team concluding that the picture's traits tell us something approximately the technology behind its formation. As STURP's John Jackson said, "Our hobby changed into and nonetheless is that this function tells us something about the technology of the photo. What made the picture at the shroud? Now you have a real scientific puzzle." The 1978 STURP investigation and the latest INEA have best added to the ongoing fascination and controversy surrounding the Shroud of Turin, a relic that continues to challenge our knowledge of records and technology. John Jackson has been captivated by the thriller of the Shroud of Turin for many years. Born and raised in Denver, he first noticed a picture of the shroud when he was just 13 or 14 years vintage, and from that second on, he was hooked. Jackson has dedicated tons of his life to crafting stable clinical experiments to test distinct hypotheses, approximately what may have created the enigmatic picture of the historic fabric. In 1978, Jackson turned into a part of the team that traveled to Italy to conduct the primary in-depth, multidisciplinary scientific examination of the shroud. Barry Schwarz, the official documenting photographer for the Shroud of Turin Studies Challenge, STURP, played a crucial role in capturing the team's meticulous paintings via his lens. The data gathered using STURP in 1978 remains the #1 medical aid for researchers reading the shroud. Even the Vatican has mentioned that the material accrued in the course of that landmark research constitutes the reliable scientific information available for shroud studies, and it has no plans to permit any, in addition to trying out besides in the area of conservation of the cloth itself. At the same time as the 1988 carbon coating of the shroud yielded a 14th century date, many researchers now believe that the carbon date may be in blunder. The controversy surrounding the shroud's origins and authenticity remains, but one aspect is obvious. No critical examination of this ancient relic can ignore the wealth of clinical information determined from the 1978 facts. Regrettably, an awful lot of the posted medical work at the shroud has not been without problems available to the general public. The technical nature of the research and its guide in obscure medical journals has created a disconnect between the facts and the general public's knowledge of the shroud. As believers, we no longer want to look at the shroud to recognize that Christ died for our sins. We have confessed our sins and asked Christ into our hearts to be our Lord and Savior. Blessed are the ones who have now not seen yet believed. But for folks who are interested in the scientific and historical mysteries of the Shroud, the 1978 information remains an important aid. And the work of researchers like John Jackson and Barry Schwarz keeps to shed mild on this enigmatic and captivating relic. Is the Shroud of Turin a medieval picture? In 1978, a group of American scientists called the Shroud of Turin Studies Undertaking, STURP, conducted the maximum comprehensive medical examination of the Shroud of Turin. Over 120 continuous hours, they subjected the ancient material to a wide range of checks and analyses, accumulating a considerable amount of statistics that helped shape our information about this enigmatic relic. At the coronary heart of this groundbreaking investigation turned into Barry Schwarz, the legitimate documenting photographer for STURP. As an Orthodox Jew raised in a secular home, Schwarz first of all approached the mission with a skeptical eye, having no emotional ties to the Shroud. But as he witnessed the meticulous paintings of the STURP group and the mysteries that unfolded before him, his attitude shifted. The facts collected via STURP in 1978 remain the primary clinical aid for researchers analyzing the Shroud at the moment. Even the Vatican has acknowledged that this cloth constitutes the reputable scientific statistics to be had for Shroud research, and it has no plans to permit any, in addition to trying it out, except in the vicinity of conservation of the fabric itself. One of the key figures within the STURP investigation is physicist John Jackson, who has been captivated by way of the mystery of the Shroud for decades. Born and raised in Denver, Jackson first noticed a photo of the Shroud as a teenager and immediately became hooked. He has devoted plenty of his life to crafting solid clinical experiments to check one-of-a-kind hypotheses, approximately the image on the ancient cloth. While the 1988 carbon relationship of the Shroud yielded a 14th century date, many researchers now consider that the carbon date can be an error. The debate surrounding the Shroud's origins and authenticity remains, but one factor is apparent. No severe observation of this historic relic can forget about the wealth of scientific statistics decided from the 1978 facts. Unfortunately, a lot of the posted clinical paintings on the Shroud have not been easy to have for most people. The technical nature of the research and its e-book in difficult-to-understand scientific journals has created a disconnect between the information and the general public's information about the Shroud. Proto-images principle. Professor Nicholas Allen's proto-photography concept about the Shroud of Turin is an interesting but deeply unsuitable attempt to explain the starting place of the mysterious picture on the historical fabric. According to Allen, the uncooked substances and technology important to create a photograph existed in medieval instances, and a professional medieval photographer could harness these substances to produce what seems to be a photographic bad of a crucified guy. Allen's idea proposes that the photographer used a digicam obscura, a room-sized pinhole digital camera, to challenge the picture of a body onto a linen material that has been treated with a mild, touchy, silver-based emulsion. He claims the photographer might have had to show the cloth in halves, first the front, after which the lower back, over the path of a minimum of 8 days to seize the whole photo correctly. Furthermore, Allen shows the photographer might also have used an exceptional lens for the facial photograph to prevent the body from decaying at some point during the lengthy publicity. He argues that the spherical aberration he has detected inside the facial location helps the concept of a separate exposure. But Allen's principle falls apart below closer scrutiny. Notwithstanding his great documentation of historical references to lenses and digicam obscures, he has no longer been capable of offering an unmarried instance of this medieval photography procedure getting used everywhere in art or photographic records. If the sort of progressive technique had been advanced centuries before the advent of contemporary pictures, one might count on finding numerous examples of this specific artwork form. Moreover, the Shroud of Turin shows a degree of detail and accuracy that might be almost impossible for a medieval photographer to reap, regardless of the most sophisticated contemporary digital imaging strategies. The forensic accuracy of the bloodstains and scourge marks on the material, as confirmed by more than one expert pathologist, can't be without problems defined using Allen's proposed technique. The theory also fails to deal with the crucial difficulty of the bloodstains on the shroud, which research has proven had been gift earlier than the image became shaped and can have even inhibited the picture formation manner. Allen's rationalization leaves this crucial factor of the shroud unresolved. In the long run, while ingenious, Professor Allen's proto-photography idea isn't supported by the overpowering scientific proof amassed from the great research of the Shroud of Turin. The mysteries surrounding this historic relic continue to captivate researchers. However, Allen's proposal does now not offer a high-quality or convincing reason for the shroud's origins. A few ultimate factors. The Shroud of Turin has long been a source of fascination, controversy, and excessive scientific scrutiny. Through the years, the mixture of proof accrued by researchers has painted a compelling image that this ancient material may indeed be the real burial shroud of Jesus Christ. The problematic information and forensic accuracy of the image of the shroud are virtually tremendous. Professional pathologists and anatomists have meticulously studied the depiction and unanimously concluded that it reflects the wounds and physical trauma of a crucified man with a surprising degree of precision. The scourge marks, the body's location, and the bloodstains' appropriate nature all factor to a degree of realism that could be nearly impossible for a medieval forger or artist to duplicate. Furthermore, the main hypothesis proposed by using two groups of researchers suggests that the picture becomes shaped by using an excessive burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. This idea is mainly exciting, as it aligns with the religious significance of the shroud and the biblical money owed for Jesus' resurrection. The concept that the picture became created by an awesome, supernatural occasion in preference to human arms lends credence to the opportunity that this is indeed the burial cloth of the Messiah. The want for a new, well-carried-out carbon coating test is essential. The preceding consequences, which dated the shroud to the 14th century, were referred into question using the overpowering medical proof pointing to a much advanced starting place. If a new take a look at is achieved in strict adherence to conventional protocols, it might be unexpected if the consequences do not align with the findings of the four more recent courting techniques, which endorse a date of around 50 adverts. The end result might lend similar weight to the theory that the Shroud of Turin is the real burial shroud of Jesus Christ, with evidence suggesting his incredible resurrection. While we may not yet have a definitive reason behind the unique and mysterious formation of the picture, the maximum attainable present-day speculation, based totally on the blended work of those studies' teams, offers a compelling and interesting possibility. Vacuum ultraviolet radiation hypothesis. The studies carried out by Dr. John Jackson and his group have shed fantastic light on the enigmatic origins of the Shroud of Turin. Their hypothesis, which proposes that the picture becomes shaped using an intense burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation, is a fascinating and notion-upsetting cause of this historic and mysterious relic. In step with their findings, sometime after the blood deposits had dried at the shroud, the decomposing frame within it emitted a brief, however enormously effective burst of this unique form of radiation. This burst of electricity triggered a discoloration and dehydration of the uppermost surface of the shroud's fibers, resulting in the advent of a super three-dimensional bad image of each of the frontal and dorsal parts of the frame. What makes this hypothesis so compelling is the reality that we currently haven't any herbal reason behind the prevalence of such a burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation from both a decomposing body and the geological and atmospheric conditions within a tomb. This loss of a known herbal reason lends credence to the idea that the photo may also have been created via a supernatural phenomenon, perhaps as a manifestation of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. While we cannot scientifically prove a supernatural origin for the radiation, the distinctiveness and inexplicability of this phenomenon offer us the motive to agree that God may also have provided us with tangible proof of this pivotal occasion in Christian records. As we keep doing away with every recognized herbal motive for image formation, the hypothesis proposed using Dr. Jackson and his crew becomes increasingly compelling. Their research also shows that the frame inside the shroud became mechanically obvious and emitted light frivolously from every three-dimensional factor inside it. This allowed the frontal part of the shroud to crumble, creating a photo of each the outside and inside of the arms, as well as a double image on the frontal part of the shroud. The fact that the regarded legal guidelines of physics can't currently provide an explanation for how a decomposing frame could emerge as mechanically transparent and frivolously emit vacuum ultraviolet radiation from every three-dimensional point within it leaves us at the threshold of an ability trans-bodily or metaphysical rationalization. As our medical information continues to conform, the Shroud of Turin and the theories surrounding its formation can also offer us with profound insights into the mysteries of the universe and the character of the divine. For believers, the consequences of Dr. Jackson's speculation are clearly profound. If the shroud is certainly the burial fabric of Jesus Christ, and the image was shaped with the aid of a staggering burst of radiation in the course of his resurrection, then we might also have tangible evidence of one of the most pivotal activities in human records. This would now not only lend credence to the Christian faith, but also challenge our expertise of the bodily international and the limits of medical clarification. Even for the skeptics, the Shroud of Turin remains a charming and enigmatic artifact that maintains to defy easy rationalization, transphysical or metaphysical explanation. If we receive the idea that the regarded laws of physics can't explain how a decomposing body could grow to be robotically obvious and flippantly emit vacuum ultraviolet radiation from each three-dimensional factor within it, then it might be each reasonable and responsible to not forget the possibility of a trans-bodily or metaphysical reason behind the formation of the picture at the Shroud of Turin. While science is restrained to the area of physical causation, and we cannot scientifically prove a trans-bodily motive, the unique and inexplicable nature of the phenomenon located on the shroud shows that we may additionally want to appear beyond the only physical realm for an answer. If the situations mentioned through Dr. Jackson's research remain real, and we have eliminated each regarded natural reason for the picture formation, then it becomes reasonable to infer the opportunity and perhaps even the likelihood of a trans-bodily reason interacting with the decomposing frame to transform it into an intense burst of mild. This trans-bodily clarification of the shroud's picture leads us to consider the opportunity that it is able to point to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The resurrection, as defined in the Gospels and by way of St. Paul, changed into no longer an insignificant resuscitation of a cloth corpse, however. Alternatively, a remodeling event that gave an upward push to what St. Paul referred to as a non-secular body, a frame converted in glory, spirit, and electricity, may want to the transformation of a material frame right into a burst of intense light, as counseled via the shroud's photo, represent the beginning point of the transformation of Jesus's body from a physical one to a spiritual, glorified one. While there may be no clinical evidence of this, it's miles a reasonable inference drawn from the parallels between the rationale of the shroud's enigmatic image and the testimony of St. Paul and the Gospel writers. On this experience, we would say that the photograph on the shroud provides a clue, even a relic of Jesus's resurrection. It's far a tangible reminder that the physical international as we recognize it won't be the entirety of fact, and that there are forces and phenomena beyond our current medical know-how that form the direction of human records and the very cloth of life itself. As we grapple with the mysteries of the Shroud of Turin, we are pressured to confront the limitations of our scientific information and the opportunity that there are realms of fact that go beyond the purely physical. This is not a cozy vicinity for lots, because it demands our assumptions and forces us to recall the existence of higher electricity, or a religious size in the universe. However, it is also an area of surprise and possibility, where the limits between the bodily and the metaphysical blur, and we seize glimpses of the profound mysteries that lie on the coronary heart of our life. The bills of Jesus' burial within the Gospels, particularly in the e-book of Luke, offer fascinating connections to the Shroud of Turin. Luke facts that after Jesus' crucifixion, his body turned into wrapped-in linen strips and placed in a tomb. The Gospel of John, in addition, specifies that the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head turned into found mendacity separately from the linen strips. This detail has generated passionate interest, as many trust it can be a reference to the Shroud of Turin, the historic burial cloth believed by some to have wrapped the frame of Jesus. The query of whether or not the Shroud of Turin is virtually the burial cloth of Jesus is a complex one, counting on historical, medical, and biblical facts, in addition to input from numerous different disciplines. While it appears indisputable that the shroud got here from a person who changed into crucified, and that the photo and stains on the cloth validate the Bible's description of crucifixion, there are also reasons to doubt the reliability of the carbon coating analysis that placed the shroud inside the medieval period. Latest tendencies have opened the distinct opportunity that the shroud may also, in fact, date to the time of Christ, combining technology and faith in a completely unique way. Whether or no longer the Shroud of Turin is the real burial fabric of Jesus, it remains a fascinating and mysterious relic that maintains to assignment and inspires believers and students alike. The Catholic Church has lengthily diagnosed its importance, with popes talking of the most well-known shroud, wherein Jesus became wrapped, and approved the birthday celebration of hundreds and the composition of treatises associated with the shroud and the precious blood of Christ, its miles believed to endure. The possibility to look at this ancient fabric and character is an extraordinary and profound reveal, one that could deepen our know-how of the passion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's all for today. See you to the next one.